am back in Sonoma and really thrilled to be here with Dan Kosta. Dan is the founder of DK Wine Group, and man, your history goes on and on, but first of all, thank you for being on the program today.
It's my pleasure. This is great, and it's very interesting that you say history goes on and on. I'm not that old, am I?
I'm not going to say anything. You and I had met at the barrel auction for the first time, and of course, I've known about you for an awfully long time, not that long of a time, but you have a remarkable history in this business, and I so admire that because it's a challenging business. There is nothing easy about wine. Does that not make you crazy from time to time when people seem to think that this is, here you are in the tasting room, life is good, got to go home, flying somewhere tomorrow?
Well, I suppose there's a certain element of making it look easy, but it really is kind of second nature at this point. You know, it has been 25 years. Actually, longer than that now, 1997, when Michael and I first started making wine. I think I'd feel more awkward if people weren't paying attention. You know, I think that we're really blessed that, A, we get this chapter 2 after Kosta Browne, and B, that we have all the tools and the resources to do it, and that when we started Kosta Browne, for example, we were collecting tips. Well, we're no longer collecting tips. We can be a little bit more deliberate in how we approach this project. So no, it's always going to be work, but I've got a great team. We're still a boutique wine business, but we have this wonderful team that allows us to really specialize in whether it's winemaking, sales, marketing, and so we're organized, which makes it a little bit easier knowing what we have to do.
What made you decide that you wanted to be a winemaker?
Yeah, it's a good question because winemaking is something that was kind of an end game for me because I was always into wine as a child. Even my dad had introduced me to wine, and
really?
I've been tasting wine since I was 5 years old. And so, you know, in fact, a lot of people ask me, what was that first aha wine? I'm like, I don't know. I was 5. I think it was in a sippy cup. So I never really had that aha moment. You know, I was raised on good wine, too. My dad was an airline pilot, so he was going back and forth to France, and he liked Hungarian wines, too. So I had this kind of diverse palette of wine, and then I started getting analytical about it, you know, as you get older, and I really love the restaurant business. I love the theatrics of the restaurant business. So I worked in the restaurant business throughout high school and college. Eventually worked my way up to be a wine director at John Ash & Company, which is a high-end restaurant here in Sonoma County. And back in the mid-90s when I was directing that program, it was the only game in town pretty much for as far as high-end wine collection. I was allowed to work with international wines as well as domestic, obviously, with a hell of a budget. So that was pretty cool. But once you get to that point of when you curate wines and you live in wine country, you're from wine country, you kind of gravitate towards, okay, now we got to complete this thing and produce. And that's what Michael and I did in 1997. While working at the restaurant, we made a barrel of Pinot Noir, and that was it. It was over from there. I don't want to say that we made everything perfectly from then out. We did make some wines that missed, which is good. You got to learn how to not make wine in order to learn how to make wine. I think it was just being around wine. You naturally want to go towards the production side of things. I think that, so there's these two sides that people like to talk about when it comes to wine production, the art side and the science side. Well, we kind of knew what we wanted to do on the art side, which is basically, you know where you're going to get, or you know where you want to be with the finished product. And for us, we knew it was going to be Pinot Noir. We knew what style. We wanted a bit richer style. The learning on the job part was real scientific. That was, learning how to make a sound wine without, wine is a controlled rot. So you have to be able to guide a wine scientifically before you get to the art, the artistic aspect of it.
What was your first vintage? Under Kosta Browne.
Well, Kosta Browne, we'd like to say it was 1997, but that really was a garage wine. But we officially started Kosta Browne in 1999 with not Pinot Noir, but with Sauvignon Blanc from Lake County, California.
Oh, funny. Who would have thunk?
Yeah. So that first garage wine was Pinot Noir, and we thought it was great. But when you're starting a business and you're not just doing one barrel of Pinot Noir, you're doing multiple barrels, it gets expensive. And so we didn't have money. Sauvignon Blanc, it was cheaper to purchase a ton of Sauvignon Blanc. You're not purchasing barrels because it was all stainless steel, and you had a little bit of cash flow because you could ferment and bottle and sell by February. And we called that Chateau Cash Flow.
Sorry. A number of winemakers I've met over the years started in the garage. Not unusual, and as I mentioned to you, having talked to a couple of home winemakers, it's the respect of the work that goes into it. Did you feel at one point, though, geez, we really did bite off a little bit here? I mean,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. More looking back, I think. I mean, it was difficult for a good 5 years. We finally did get some angel investors in the form of friends and family. We didn't raise that much money, but we had enough to actually make it a business. But there were, it's easy to brush over the challenges and the bad things that happen when you look back. You kind of tend to remember the good things, but for us, those bad things, those challenges made us stronger. I mean, you're making Pinot Noir, so not only are you starting without a textbook or formal training, but we're starting with one of the hardest grapes to make, and that was. Most certainly a challenge, but no regrets, because those rewards are just that much more. And now where we are 25 years later, we don't really have to worry about that. Yeah, we have challenges, but we've got a lot of arrows in the quiver that we can work with nowadays. I like having that kind of track behind me so that we can make educated decisions with good resources to mitigate any challenge and to really further ourselves moving forward.
DK Wine Group, what year did you start that?
DK Wine Group, we started in 2019. Michael Brown and I sold our interest in Kosta Browne towards the end of 2017. We sold that to Duckhorn, and now that brand is under the stewardship of Duckhorn, and we left entirely. So it's been about 6 years since we left, and 7 years almost. And we brought on private equity to Kosta Browne in 2009, actually, way before Duckhorn came. So we knew the writing was on the wall that this was not going to be a legacy brand, neither for Michael or myself, to hand to our kids. So when you realize that, you know that, okay, well, what's the next step? You gotta realize we're not that old. So there's going to be something else there, and that's when we started thinking about Convene and the other two brands that we have now that came later. But that was also, if you remember, that's 2019 was our first vintage. Didn't really have the brand yet. You don't need to, because you harvested the grapes, but then COVID hit. So we developed Convene during COVID, which was the silver lining of COVID, because it was like a year-long retreat where there was not much else to do except for focus on something like a new brand. And that's what we did. And Convene means a lot of things. It means a coming together, a confluence of a lot of things. That's where our blends are, our Pinot Noir blends, our Chardonnay blend. So it's a coming together of vineyards. It's a confluence of my and Shane and the rest of the team's history and experience coming together. And then, of course, wine always tastes better when you get together with friends and family when you convene. And so we had plenty of time to think about the branding and where we wanted to go.
But there is a weird skew about age, palate, education, and experience. They all come together at different times.
For sure. For me, however, I've been around wine for 47 years, out of 53.
That's a lot.
I've only had 5 years of not being around wine.
Yeah, not too many people could say that.
That's
Dan.
right.
Not many people.
The other part of it, you know, yes, we didn't have wine. Just here you go. It was usually Friday, Saturday night. You had an ounce. Remember the old port glasses that you would bounce on the ground and they wouldn't break? We would have a little taste, but we had to at least be encouraged to be analytical about the wine. So we had to talk about it. We had to say what we felt about the wine. So it wasn't just this, you know, alcoholic product that you're having just for the sake of it. It was wine appreciation from day one.
We're here at Bacchus Landing, which is where your tasting room is. I'm assuming you're by appointment, or can people just wander on in? How does it work?
I love that question because when we opened here a couple of years ago, it was very important to me. Well, first of all, I don't do a lot of wine tasting. Why would I, right? I live here. I know a lot of people. I try all the wines. I don't need to go get that tasting experience that our friends from outside the area want to get. But what I noticed when I was developing this project, as far as the tasting room, which I had never done before, I did go out and taste, and I was really turned off by how many people were appointment only, and they were charging an exorbitant amount of money. But most of the times that I went to these tasting rooms, they said appointment only, and they were empty. I said, well, that's not very hospitable. So I went the other way. I said, you know, this is a new brand. I want to introduce this to people. I need to get this wine into people's mouths. And you want trial. You want that. I don't think it's like the old days when people come out just to drink wine and get drunk. I think people come out here with a purpose to purchase wine. And so trust the customer. We don't have to charge an exorbitant amount of wine. And we certainly don't want to have to hold you to an appointment if you're coming in from Cleveland, Ohio. Well, are you going to plan your whole trip out ahead of time? I don't like doing that. I like to get to the hotel, see what kind of mood I'm in, and say, hey, hon, let's go and hit this place, and be spontaneous. So that's exactly what we do here. We really encourage walk-ins for sure.
For our listeners who would like to learn about you online, what is your website?
Yes, so you can go to dkwinegroup.com. That'll be kind of a landing page for all of our brands, Admire and Convene and Grail. And then I believe our website for Bacchus Landing is bacchuslanding.com.
Dan, your passion is just so much fun. You're so much fun to talk to. Thank you for your time. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you. It's been great.